Hey guys, Nary here from Drakewing Games. Some of you know me on Twitter, The Gaming Dragon. Today I'm coming back at you another Let's Play episode of No More Future. So in the last place we left off, we had just settled down in the restaurant with Jasper, and we're getting ready to order, or, you know, have our food ordered for us, because apparently that's what this place does. They just size you up and order for you. But anyway, guys, please sit back and enjoy. Let me entertain you for the next 20 minutes, and let's jump right in. Alarm saying you're up. Alright, let's go. Alright, let me get my gravelly Jasper voice back. I really miss how Sedge did Jasper's voice. It was just perfect, in my opinion. Anyway, here we go. Your family must have been mad. That's one of the priciest restaurants this side of the country. Not even one of the best quality-wise, either. Yeah, try telling that to my family. I know I tried when we got to the... I know I tried. When we got to the gates, dressed like people who just came back from the beach, I literally warned them. You know you're in the wrong place when the waiters at the entrance dress better than you. Jasper cannot resist laughing just a little bit louder at your comment, evidently quite content with your self-awareness. It happened! He smiled! Life is now complete! Oh my god, miracles do happen! Not that you can blame him. The hilarity and wit of your joke ring true even now, when your yellow sweater and cheap pair of trousers can hardly compare with the Drake's formal apparel or rigid uniforms of the waiters. As for you, you take a quick look around your table, making sure no stray butler heard your possibly offensive musings. The only one you can find, however, rests on the other side of the restaurant, looking in your direction absent-mindedly, holding a small, half-empty bottle of water with which to refill your glasses as soon as you try to drink from them. You already know from your previous experience that those things cost $20 a piece at least. The choice between a dry throat and a dry bank account is as clear now as it was back then. Anyway, long story short, we had a terrible time and ended up with a $1,000 bill for 6 people. That's rather strange. For some reason I expected it to be higher. That's because we only ordered the cheapest things on the menu and didn't drink any water whatsoever. Oh my god. Didn't eat anything either, for that matter. How's my 8-year-old cousin supposed to eat plankton, air, and cocoa beans? Poor kid has had nightmares about that outing ever since. You're pretty sure his parents still have to drag him out by the ears every time they want to go someplace. Noticing the unusual smile on Jasper's lips, you tried to bring the conversation back to him. I assume you've never experienced anything similar. Not even remotely. On the rare occasion I eat with guests and they bring children along, they're usually already accustomed to the high cuisine dishes of the restaurants we go to. Upon ending his sentence, the Drake finally wipes that grin off his face. It appears as though he now only just realized he was smiling to begin with. I hope you don't take my reactions to your tale personally. I simply don't happen to hear stories about lower-class people as often as I do my own. So, do you think I'm from a lower class than you are? As I said, don't take it personally. It's merely an objective assessment. Do I really need to inquire how much your family made before you sold yourself to science to have a good picture of how big the gap between our earnings is? No, he doesn't. But the fact that he's drawing attention to this point still makes you mad regardless. Well, I hope you're still enjoying all that extra money you have, then. The dragon is stunned by your passive-aggressive comment for a few seconds. He appears desperate to look offended by your words, yet cannot seem to come up with any sort of comeback. Instead, he retreats a little further within himself, shifting his gaze to the world outside so as to avoid your own. With nothing more to say, you try to slow yourself down and begin thinking about your time with the CEO so far. You're probably taking his words a little too personally, if you had to guess. He's already trying as hard as he can to understand you in spite of his ideological limitations, so to say. The least you could do is try and be kinder to him in return. Then again, the whole thing started because he brought you to this fancy place to begin with. A choice that wasn't made with the best of intentions, either. And all that began as a result of that nonsensical meeting with the owners that you still can't wrap your head around, and the truth is, the more you try to make sense of any of this, the less you understand. Figuring out what you're supposed to be doing, or thinking at a time like this, feels like studying for an exam only 30 minutes before it begins. Not wanting to break into hysterics before your reptilian companion, you try to distract yourself by staring out the window as well, similar to what he's doing. The people bustling about in the streets down below look so tiny from up here. You're not sure exactly how high up you are, but you'd be surprised if it were anything below 100 feet. The city itself looks wonderful, thanks to all the lovely colors and exotic shapes. It feels like you're in a modern art museum, gazing onto a new artwork every time you tilt your gaze ever so slightly. Too bad the horizon... oh, wait, hold on a second, let me pause it. Too bad the horizon isn't featured in this unique collection. and even the pink sky above has to fight for space amidst this urban jungle. The sight is almost melancholic in a way, though you cannot say how or why that is. Apologies for the wait, good guests. You and Jasper both are brought back to Earth by the sudden arrival of the same waiter from earlier, accompanied by two valets holding some scarcely furnished plates. Look on Isaac's face. For our first hors d'oeuvre, we... Oh my god, no! Oh, it's so bad. We have an air of plankton and cocoa beans on a bed of river trout and potato skells. Have a good meal. It is only after the skunk and his fellow waiters have blessed you that you allow yourself to chuckle at the plate before you, earning a soft giggle even from the man before you. Ironic. Ironic indeed. Hope this doesn't mean they heard me. I assure you they didn't. Had your tone of voice ever gotten that high, I would have silenced you myself. Well, that's reassuring and a little frightening. You take a brief look into your plate, if you can even call it that. You're not sure if you could even see the trout hidden underneath what looks like the sea foam, but a meal is a meal, you suppose, especially if Jasper's paying for it. When you finally get to it, the taste is about as ethereal as you originally expected. It tastes like nothing. So you claim. I'm actually rather enjoying myself. He's certainly not displeased, that's for sure, but for that matter, neither are you, considering there was barely anything in there to be displeased by. Having said that, I'm surprised you could even taste anything at all. Of all the things Dr. Shelley could have developed before a means of establishing your humanity or lack thereof, a sense of taste must have been at the bottom of the list. And yet I have one, and I also feel pain for that matter, as well as go to sleep when I'm feeling drained. That sounds entirely unnecessary? Yeah, I guess you're right about that. But imagine how you'd feel if you were suddenly deprived of all these things at once. I'm pretty sure anyone who finds themselves in such a situation would be quick to go insane. The Drake is as intrigued by your argument as he is repelled by it. In an effort to not lose his mind, he decides to change the subject onto something else that you just said. If you say so, yet I doubt you'll find anyone in the world who lives every day in pain and agony who wouldn't get rid of that sensation in a heartbeat given the opportunity. If you can choose whether to feel pain or not, as I assume you do, and you still choose to suffer, then you are a fool. You can't say you don't see the truth in the dragon's words, as rude as they are. It's definitely a fair perspective on this matter, if nothing else. But you have your own perspective you wish to share. Do you have any idea how it feels to lose everything all at once? To go to sleep, not knowing if you'll ever get to wake up again? Your choice of topic has successfully unnerved the unpleasant Drake, though whether that was your intended goal or not is debatable. Nonetheless, with all these dark thoughts swarming your mind at present, beckoned by your dreadful memories, the only thing you can do is voice them out loud before they overtake you from within. I know what it's like to feel nothing now, and that has taught me how important it is to feel anything. Hunger, pain, sure they're inconvenient, they've always been inconvenient, but that doesn't make them any less important. Maybe you're right, and I might be better off without them, but I think I'd rather keep them for now, if only so I can remember what it's like to live and breathe. You gotta thank Apollo for helping you come to terms with your feelings on the matter. If it wasn't for that discussion you had with him and his sister a few days back, you don't know what you'd be doing, what you'd be thinking right now. Oop, the music stopped. Again, the dragon's gaze veers off into the unknown, his expression a mixture of uncertainty, fear, and anger. The only thing you can gather is that he's been listening intently to everything you said. Not quite the conversation you're looking forward to, I assume. Indeed. Frankly speaking, this sort of sentimental talk is outside the scope of our meeting here. We didn't come to this place to discuss trivial things such as these, nor are we here to waste time and idle about. We are here to absolve a purpose, as you well remember yourself. As calm and serious as Jasper purports himself to be, you can notice a distinct feeling of discomfort hidden behind his austere facade, of hurt, even. But there's no point inquiring about it at this point, you reckon? He'd probably just deny it and start yelling at you again. I understand. Good. So let us return to what we should really be discussing, shall we? You're referring to our talk from earlier in the car, right? About your company and stuff? Indeed. We never quite finished that conversation, did we? I'm pretty sure we didn't, no. I think the last thing we spoke about was whether Pandora classified as a family business or not. You know, on account of your family being pretty much responsible for it existing in the first place and stuff. The Drake raises an eyebrow at your observation, though to what end you cannot say. Well, I certainly wouldn't call it that myself, if I could avoid it, but it is true that my family has been in charge of Pandora's management and upkeep from across the ages. Now it's your turn to squint at Jasper's affirmation. Across the ages? How old is Pandora again? Well, it's a little difficult to pinpoint exactly due to its murky origins. But the nucleus of what would later become Pandora was laid out as early as the late 18th century. The 18th? That's almost 300 years ago! That's quite the storied history for an R&D firm. Again, Jasper gives you a weird sort of look, as though he genuinely cannot tell whether you're jesting or not. I'm referring to Pandora Incorporated, not the labs. Those have only been around for about half as long, give or take. Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting that they're two separate entities. That's quite difficult to believe. You mean to tell me you truly cannot distinguish between the two? They are quite different, after all. I think so? From what I gathered earlier at the meeting, all Pandora Inc. does is provide the funding for the labs to function, correct? The Drake almost facepalms at your assertion. That woman truly told you nothing, did she? You raise an eyebrow at his comment, though thankfully a deeper explanation is not too far behind. The labs belong to Pandora. Pandora Holding, yes, but claiming that all Pandora does is provide funding to other businesses is hardly a comprehensive answer. What does that even mean? The conversation has become so technical in nature, you're honestly starting to feel a little left out. So, what does Pandora Inc. actually do again? Everything. The answer is so quick and sudden it almost takes you aback. You mean that it's involved in a lot of different markets, or? The Drake needs quite some time to sort through his thoughts, and you can't say that makes you any less disconcerted. Even that isn't a complete answer. Then what is the complete answer exactly? That Pandora has stakes in numerous businesses and holdings across the entire economic spectrum. And how is that any different from what I just said? Jasper gives you a foul look, unamused at your rude interruption. These businesses and holdings have also have stakes in numerous other businesses and holdings, and so do these latter groups, and so on and so forth. Do you understand where I'm going with this? Not really? To latent terms even you can understand. Through its numerous holdings and business ventures, Pandora Inc. owns everything. Every business in every sector, in every market, in every country. Well, almost everything. But the point still stands. You mean even this restaurant? You give a brief look at your surroundings once again, who all of a sudden shine in a completely different light than they did earlier. Of course, and rest assured the waiters here know this very well, whether they're fully aware of it or not. Why else do you suppose they had so little trouble vacating the entire restaurant for our arrival? It was done solely to accommodate you, after all, and you coming along was decided at the last minute. That makes a staggering amount of sense, actually. You were wondering how come the entire restaurant was empty save for the two of you. Regardless, this doesn't make what you're hearing any less unreal. Restaurants and eateries are but a small part of our ventures, and yet we control nearly all of them nonetheless. Even further beyond those, if you can name a company or an enterprise, it is more likely than not that we are behind it. So you're like a monopoly? The dragon scoffs at your comment, as though you've still yet to grasp what he's trying to tell you. A monopoly is a business that controls the entirety of a specific market, android. And like I said, that's not an apt descriptor for what we are. Pandora isn't a business. It's not even a market. It's the entire world economy. But just as Jasper finishes his sentence, the waiters bring the next appetizer, poached clams, something. You honestly didn't listen. You haven't even deigned your plate a glance. All you can do is stare, flabbergasted at the Drake before you, eating his meal intently as though he didn't just say the craziest thing you've ever heard, possibly in your entire life. Wait, back up. You're pulling my leg, right? I mean, there's no way we're having this conversation now, of all times, in the middle of a restaurant where people might hear us. And yet we are having this conversation right here, in the middle of this locale, where other people might hear us. But few people are around, anyway. You briefly glance at the nearby tables, prompted by the CEO. Oop. Even now, they're still empty. When you first saw them upon entering the locale, you merely found it shocking. Now it's more so unsettling. And you're fine telling me all this in spite of that. Aren't you afraid of those waiters learning all about how you're the world economy or whatever? Last you heard, deep conspiracies like that only thrive because nobody's aware of them even existing. Or at least that's what you assume. You honestly haven't watched nearly enough movies to have an opinion on this kind of stuff. Movies. Not really, no. Whether people are aware of what I'm telling you or not is entirely irrelevant. You being aware of it, on the other hand, is of the utmost importance at present. Me? What does me being aware of all this have to do with anything... have anything to do with why we're here? I thought you were supposed to ask me questions and stuff, to get a better idea about how I'm human or not, like the owners asked. The dragon covers his face as he shakes his head, evidently disappointed, mouthing foul words under his breath you can only catch a hint of. And pray tell, how am I supposed to gain insight into your situation, when you're clearly unaware of it in the first place? You're instantly taken aback by Jasper's sudden retort, so cold and to the point it is. If there's someone who needs to learn here, it is none other than you. You didn't know the laws surrounding synthetics when I first met you. You didn't know of the FBI's meddling in the project until they showed up in your apartment. And just now I found out that you didn't even know the full scope of the company that created you in the first place. You can't bring yourself to reply to a single one of these accusations. You more than anyone else know that you're guilty as charged. Honestly, you should just feel happy that I'm taking time out of my day to educate you on this matter, assuming you could even feel happy in the first place. After all, it's not like Dr. Shelley ever told you about any of this before, did she? No, she didn't. Well, if anything, her not saying anything just makes all this even more implausible. I mean, there's no way you guys got this big and did all this with nobody noticing. Oh, don't make me laugh. Do you really think this is all some sort of big conspiracy? As I stated earlier, Pandora acquired its leading position in the world economy through perfectly legal fusions and acquisitions, all done in broad daylight, no less. This music's so good. I assure you, people have every opportunity to take notice of what was happening. You cannot tell whether the Drake's voice is any particular intonation, so lost you are trying to wrap your head around everything he's saying. And you're saying nobody ever realized that Pandora owned every single business they ever bought goods or services from. Did you? No, but... Correct. And the same is true for most people out there, if I had to guess. After all, who has the time or even the desire to investigate things such as these? To sift through the records, the documents, the data of every single company of existence, until they inevitably stumble onto us at every turn? Very few people indeed. And even if there are such people in the world, you'd be hard-pressed to find any among them who actually care. I would. What? Are you insane? Why would anybody not care upon finding out that a single company like Pandora owns every facet of their lives? It's actually rather startling how quickly you began accepting everything that comes out of Jasper's lips as fact. Though if you had to guess, it's probably even more startling that you never figured out any of this before today. Your doubts have only increased since the dragon first pointed out how Mary never told you about any of this. What in the world is she even doing? Is this yet another one of her attempts at shielding you from truths so you have no reason to learn? Or did she too assume you were already aware of this nightmare you've apparently been living your whole life? Whatever the case, it appears as though the dragon is hardly finished with his explanation. To put it simply, most people wouldn't care about Pandora being as dominant as it is for the same reasons that allowed us to reach this position to begin with. Namely, because we're convenient. Convenient? Instead of answering, Jasper motions at the plate before you, which you still haven't touched since it was first brought to your table. You should finish your meal now, before our hosts start thinking that you don't like the food. It's not very polite to leave scraps behind either way. Not very polite? Either this is the CEO's way of trying to exert power over you, or he genuinely can't tell how invested, how unsettled you are by your conversation. As angry as you feel at his attempt at derailing you, you try your best to hide it behind a veil of insecurity. It'll probably be better received by the Drake than outright hostility. I don't think I'm hungry anymore. Perhaps. But for the sake of not causing a scene, I suggest you dispose of that food nonetheless. That and lower your voice to acceptable levels. The foul look from the Drake is more than enough for your fake fear to quickly turn real. You honestly hadn't realized you'd begun shouting in the midst of your rant just now. You begin to pick apart your plate of whatever this is little by little, astounded by the Drake's inhuman composure, his ability to recount things so nittedly, in spite of how nightmarish they sound, is quite horrifying indeed. You're slowly losing your mind hearing him speak, and yet his serious gaze remains the same as ever. It's actually almost as frightening as his explanation itself. Nonetheless, the food still tastes like nothing. Oh, for the love of it, tastes perfectly fine, I assure you. This is fine dining of the highest caliber, and all guests of this establishment agree to this fact. If you can't handle the food you're eating, the most likely explanation is that there's something wrong with your taste buds. That sounds kind of like gaslighting, not gonna lie. Jasper raises an eyebrow in disbelief at your witty remark, half spoken in jest. You're not sure whether it's because he thinks you said something very smart or very stupid. As funny as it is to see him in this state, you decide to nudge him forward, eager to see what more the dragon wishes to share with you. So, convenience. Care to explain what you mean by that one of these days? Well, it's a little bit of everything, really. Lots of small things that add up in their whole. Like how you can watch every show you can think of on a video screen through a single account on Netflix. I'm sure that's far more manageable than making dozens of accounts on different service providers, correct? Or how you can have goods from all over the world delivered right by your doorstep within a matter of hours instead of having to wait weeks or months. And of course I don't need to mention things like smartphones or the internet even existing, do I? Alright guys, I'm gonna pause it right there. Thank you all so much for watching. Man, poor Isaac. Don't piss off Jasper. Don't piss off Jasper. He'll probably throw you out the damn window or something. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, leave a super thanks or a tip if you can. It always helps. Until the next video, I love you all. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!